G'day folks, this is David Errill here from the Xylem Zone, just checking in for the day for another con of property investing and how to avoid them. And the one I'm still focusing off the plan and thinking of just the different things that can go wrong there. As I said, it's a lot of variables in that particular strategy, but the one I want to talk about today is more based on when you're selecting an apartment. There's obviously choices of a studio, of a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and sometimes a 3-bedroom. And I find the biggest mistake people make is they determine their purchase and the property they select, the type they select, based on how much they can afford, being their deposit, and how much they can borrow. And invariably they can get themselves in a lot of trouble based on that scenario. Now, why would that be? You would think if you have any property, you know, it could do well for you, but let's think about it. We've got a studio apartment which is probably 25 to 35 square meters, and in that situation a lot of them are treated as a hotel room, and basically the banks will lend a hell of a lot less money on them, maybe only as much as, well, maybe only provide a loan as much as 50%, 60, 70, maybe 80%, which is obviously very low, which of course means you have to have a much bigger deposit. And so that's your studio size, you're limited in size, and then most importantly with all these strategies, who's your demographic? I mean, who's your market? Who's the person that's going to live there? And you've got to sit down with every single strategy and go, righto, is there many people that would want a studio? So if I was buying down in the Gold Coast, I'd probably think, well, it might be okay for holidays, but am I going to get a long-term lease? If I was in Sydney, I go, well, is there a commercial market that I can maybe furnish that apartment that is in high demand, that where there's a shortfall of stock in that particular area? So in this case, I'd have to have the money to put in an extra deposit, plus there'd have to be a market. So a lot of people will then go, right, the studio doesn't match my strategy, so let's go for a 1-bedroom unit. I can afford that, it's cheaper, but a 1-bedroom unit, there's generally more of them. Why is there more of them? Because developers can put more of those into a site, and the reality is they get more construction, they can sell them more apartments, they make more profit, but is it the best unit for you? No, it's probably just the cheapest they can use and get out the multiples of them. And is that market that you're buying in the right market for it? So if you're buying in the CBD of a capital city, 1-bedroom units, there's probably could be a massive oversupply of those, and then that's going to diminish your rental returns, and it could diminish your capital growth. 1-bedrooms have a history of getting less capital growth, though you can often slightly get a better return if you maybe furnish them. So then we move into, well, what's our next option? It's a 2-bedroom unit, but a 2-bedroom unit's going to be at a higher price. I can't afford that. But if you go and do your research and you find out that there's a shortage of 2-bedroom units, there's a demand for them because there's a lot of young couples that want to move into a 2-bedroom unit, that want to be in the 5K of the CBD because of lifestyle, because of facilities, because of their job, because they don't have a car, all these different things. The 2-bedroom might be the one in demand, but it's a higher price. Do you have the money? Can you afford it? Now, 2-bedroom units, as a rule of thumb, over time, historically show better capital growth, but they may not be as good on the cash flow. Regarding the rent, you might not get as high yields. But what's the other upside you have with a 2-bedroom unit? It's a little bit bigger, so you get slightly more deductions and slightly more depreciation, which can help offset any negative cash flow. So then the matter is, do you have the deposit? Well, could you get that with a 10% deposit? Is there banks that will lend to you? Well, there's more chance probably of a 90% deposit, 90% loan from the banks on a 2-bedroom unit than there is on a 1-bedroom unit, especially if they fall below 50 square meters on 1-bedroom units, and banks don't like that. They'll lend you less. They've got a higher risk level. So then, right, that's a higher purchase price. Do you have the extra cash? And then you have the extra borrowing power to get the 2-bedroom. In my experience, I would always choose the 2-bedroom unit. But if I went and did the research and found 1-bedrooms were short, and there wasn't a supply, of course, I'd still consider a 1-bedroom unit. Then, of course, the third option there is a 3-bedroom unit. You don't see them as often. They're not as common. Obviously, the developers don't like them as much because they only make one sale there. So that may equate to the sub-penthouse. And, of course, that's going to be a mega price point, and then you're setting the market. And you could be paying, you know, 600, 800, $1 million, plus $1 million for that type of property. And is it going to give you the best return based on how much you've spent? It may be a very good blue chip investment, and some financial planners may tell you to get something like that and dump it in your super and have it there for retirement. But if you're investing in your personal name and you want the best growth in the shortest time to create the most amount of equity, you're probably back at the 2-bedders. And also think, who are the people that want to have a 3-bedroom unit? Well, and are they going to stay there long term? That's questionable as well. A lot of people wanting a 3-bedroom unit will be looking at a 3-bedroom townhouse because they're either have children, or they're thinking of having children, so they want a little bit of grass to play on as well, so they'll move up to the 3-bedroom townhouse and then translate or move on to the 4-bedroom house. So again, there's a lot to think about. So the mistake is, don't buy the property based on what you can afford and how much deposit you have. Do your research, find out what the supply and demand is, how much stock's on the market, what the rental returns are, and what the demographic wants. Buy what people want and what isn't available in large supply, and you're generally always going to have a better chance of making money. So anyway, that's it from for me today. Hopefully that's been useful and gives you a few more ideas of things to avoid. Obviously you need a good coach to build your strategy around that, and you also need a good finance broker to work out your numbers, and you need to develop your own skill set there, but that's what we're for at the Xylem Zone. So shout out to us, hope that helps, and look forward to catching up soon. Ciao for now.